Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News, and UNN is the official news channel for CARE, which stands for the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. If you haven't noticed, our planet needs some restoring. There are much better ways to do the everyday things that we do here on our planet. If you don't know already, we have been living in a slave planet for a very, very long time. We were all slaves. And if you're brand new to UNN, that may sound like something you haven't heard before. It's a little, that's a big thing, right? To call somebody a slave. But that's our history. And the best type of slaves, if there is such a thing, are slaves that don't realize they're slaves, right? If you don't see the prison around you, you don't try to fight it. And that is what humanity is waking up to right now. They see that something is off, and a lot of people are starting to do research. They're starting to do their homework. They're doing some digging, and they're realizing that we've been lied to about pretty much everything. And that's where we come in because we have a newscast that is distributed online at unitednetwork.tv, and our newscast comes out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And in our news, we are giving you what we call the real news. It is the truth about what is happening locally in our own communities, about where our planet is going, because things are happening, and they're happening at a very rapid pace. We talk about regional stories that impact all of you, but we try to take the perspective of how it impacts you, because I think we're all tired of just hearing from government heads or just talking, and it's just yappy stuff. It makes no difference what they say. They are all puppets, and that's the truth, right? And then we have what we call our World Situation Report, and we cover all sorts of stuff on that. I guarantee the information we cover in our World Situation Report you have never heard anywhere else, and you won't. And the reason we have access to all of this information is because we have the highest security clearance on the planet. Nobody has a higher security clearance than Kimberly Gogan, who does our World Situation Report. End of story. She knows stuff the governments don't know, or operatives, or generals. And I'm not just talking about the U.S. I'm talking about military and generals worldwide. And so it's very helpful to have her part of the light side, wouldn't you agree? And so we try to share this information with you through our newscasts. And the stuff that we talk about may seem very surprising. You know, there's going to be some stuff we say today that you're going to be like, is this real? Or am I watching an episode of Star Wars or Star Trek or insert science fiction movie here, right? Because honestly, I feel like when we get done doing the news, it's like a combination of something you might hear at a church or a synagogue or a temple of some sort, combined with a little bit of politics and, like I said, sci-fi. And you mesh all of that up and you get what is actually happening on this planet right now. It is hard to believe because so much of this has been kept from us. And even now, when you turn on the TV or the radio, you either hear mainstream media or you hear the alternative media just yapping their mouths, but not really saying anything of substance. Anything that is coming out is a narrative. It is a staged narrative that came from some 3-letter agency at the top. But not us. Not us. That is not what we do. We are not interested in that. We are not interested in lies. We are interested in giving you the truth and information that you can use as all of these changes are happening. Because our whole world has now transitioned into a light period, a light age. And we were in the dark ages forever, like millions, maybe even longer than that, years, okay? Something that our human brains really can't fathom at this point. But now we're in the light. And now it's a matter of just waking up people and also taking down any leftover remnants of people that just want to harm humanity. And trust me, there's plenty of them out there. And that's what we talk about on the news. So I encourage you, as we're talking about these stories, and maybe jot down some notes and then do your own research. Because that's kind of how we got into this mess, is we just believed whatever talking head was in front of us, whether it was a politician or, some sort of political pundit. So quit doing that. Do some research on whatever they're saying and think critically. We have to start using our own discernment as to if something is truth or, is it false? Is it fact or is it fiction? And we have the ability, our bodies have built-in lie detectors. We've just grown so out of touch with it. We're so out of touch with our own bodies, the environment, nature, all things organic, that we don't even recognize it. We forgot that we had these gifts, but they're really powerful, right? Okay, so let's get started with today's news. Here is the rundown for Friday, November 3rd, 2023. We always kick off our newscast with what we call our field messenger reports. So field messengers are kind of like citizen journalists. But I do hesitate to say the word journalist because that implies you have to have all this training. That's my training, actually, is in journalism. And trust me, you don't have to set foot inside a school in order to become a field messenger, because these are everyday people that are literally picking up their cameras and just showing us the news of what is happening in their communities. We believe that you guys tell the best stories when it comes to what is impacting, your life around you. Why do we need someone from some corporate, national news station to fly in and try to tell your story? We think you do a better job of it because you care, right? So if you want more information about becoming a field messenger, you can go to our news portion of our website, which is unitednetwork.news. And there is a tab at the top that says Field Messengers, and you can learn all about becoming a field messenger. Real easy to do. And by the way, you get some cool prizes because we do some giveaways and fun things like that. We have got 3 field messenger reports as part of this portion of our newscast. And the first one comes from Cynthia. Cynthia is in Ontario, Canada, and she does this great little story. It's a great news story about a strike that was going on. And I believe she said it started October 27th, and there were 361 union workers on strike who were part of the St. Lawrence Seaway. Now, this is a major shipping route for goods that go between the U.S. and Canada. And this is the first time in 55 years that they've had a strike. And this is significant for the area because when things get ships can't go through and bridges don't go up and, canals, aren't working properly, millions and millions of dollars get lost and things just sit on ships, right? Because they can't go anywhere. And it's estimated that they were losing $110 million US per day. And vessels were just stalled. They're just out there sitting in the water. And the reason all this was going on is because the union workers, they really wanted better wages and a better work environment. Now, we are seeing this across the board. How many industries, everything from the entertainment industry in LA, to major car manufacturers, so many people are going on strike because what happens when prices go up? You can't expect grocery prices to go up and gas prices to go up. And, the way we heat our homes and cool our homes and all that's going to go up. But the people aren't going to get upset about it. They're going to demand more money. So that's why we keep seeing this over and over again. And people just want livable wages. They don't want to have to put stuff on a credit card and not, be able to pay off the credit card. They don't want to cut back on things that are really important to their families just to keep them going, right? And then a lot of times what happens too, the reason the better work environment comes into this is because, people will leave and then they just won't replace the position. Because again, the employer is like, I don't have any money either, right? So it's kind of this vicious cycle. That's why you keep seeing this over and over again in the news. I guess the good news is that since this report was done, that they have reached a tentative agreement and they were given better wages and apparently, agreed to some better work environment conditions. So we don't have the specifics on that. That was not released to the public, but it's nice to see that people are standing up for themselves, right? Because they have to. They really don't have a choice. I mean, it's not like people have a lot of discretionary income right now, the middle class. I mean, they literally, meaning the elites, are literally trying to wipe out the middle class, right? And this may even be blue collar as well. But yeah, this is what happens when you kind of get in their way for their plan for complete and total world domination. All right, our next story is from Sue, and she is in Australia. She's on the Sunshine Coast, and she does a local story about the fires. I don't know if you guys have been watching our news, you would have seen, I believe we covered this a couple different times about the fires in Australia, and she just gives a local spin to it. So these are massive, and they really were all over the country. In fact, Sue brought up a map of where these fires were at. And it was like all around, it was almost outlining the whole, country of Australia. And she also interviewed a woman whose her home wasn't burnt down. In fact, I think the firefighters got to it before it got to her home, and they were able to put out the flames. But she describes everything she saw, right? So she had an interview with this woman, which was great. And then the local firefighters, I think this is kind of cute. They call them fireys. And many of them are volunteer, which God bless them. I always wondered what would prompt someone to become a volunteer firefighter, because I've lived in some places where the communities were really small, and so they didn't have their own, city or whatever firefighters. And they were volunteer, and they would go out in these remote areas, totally put their life in harm's way. In fact, I worked at a news station. This is a true story. I worked at a news station in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and our assistant news director was also a volunteer firefighter. So not only did he work in the newsroom, but he went out into the field, literally went out in the field, and battled blazes, which is so commendable in my mind. Because, again, they are really, they're really in there and putting themselves at risk. So anyways, the good news with the local fires for Sue's area is that no homes were lost. So, that's a good thing. But it was a great local news story. And then our third story comes from Michelle in Utah, and she showed us how to build a horse shelter that she was building for her daughter, which she says boards horses. That's like part of her business. And as you know, we, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, we are going into winter. We're in our fall period now. We're going into winter. I don't really know what the weather's like in Utah. I'm not from Utah, but I imagine it would probably get kind of cold, especially on the plains. And so they wanted to build a warm and secure shelter for their horses. And they had about 7 horses. Beautiful, by the way, beautiful horses. And they put it up in just 2 days. So they kind of showed the whole process for that, which was very educational. Let's talk about the new Earth. So this is a newer portion of our news that is focused on not where we necessarily are right this second, but where is our planet going and what do we need to know as part of this transition? And we call that the new Earth. And so we have interviews that we do, and we have inspirational stories to get you guys thinking about what's possible. We need to get off this hamster wheel of just, waking up, going to the same job for 50 years and, whatever, retiring and getting a clock or a pen or something like that and calling it a day or a lifetime, right? Like, life is meant to be so much more than that. And that's what we talk about in the New Earth. So we kick things off with an interview from Michelle Ann Phillips, and we have had Michelle on the show before. She is our theta expert. So theta is a frequency. It's a brain wave, okay? So theta brain waves. Think of you're sleeping and the different cycles you go through when you're sleeping. Well, theta is one of those, but you can access it when you're awake as well. And usually there's some sort of meditation or something that you go through. But, if you become really good at this, you can just kind of turn it on. In fact, in today's segment, Michelle and I briefly talk about the fact that all children ages 0 to 7 are in that theta mode. Okay, their brain waves are in that theta mode up until age 7, which is incredible, which makes sense. I'm a parent, so for all the parents out there, one of the things I try to do with my kids is I really, really listen to them when it comes to how to do things, because their mind is totally different than someone like me who has been on this planet for 45 years and has been conditioned and programmed to think a certain way. Like, yes, we are all trying to break out of that, but it takes time. For these little whippersnappers that are coming out, well, they're still in that frame of mind. They're still, when you are in that theta mode, you are connecting directly to the creator. When I say creator, I'm talking about God. I'm talking about source. I'm talking about the creator of the entire universe. You are tapping directly into that, which is complete truth and complete love. What better place to pull your information from? So in today's segment, in Talking with Michelle, we talk about clearing what's called limiting beliefs. These are beliefs that we have been fed our entire life, and they are not true, but people talk about them like they are true all the time. For example, one of the examples that Michelle uses is this idea that in order to understand love, we have to understand hate. Or to understand good, we have to understand bad. To take this a step further, let's use relationships as an example. So, I just got through this horrible relationship, but I'm so glad I did because now I understand what a good relationship is. You guys, that is complete false. That is completely false. That is not how things are supposed to work. You are not supposed to have to go through bad stuff to understand good stuff. That is an example of a limiting belief, and that is part of this false matrix that we live in. But we have to break ourselves out of these lies. And getting into theta mode is a great way to do that because, again, you are locking yourself into absolute truth. The creator is absolute truth and full knowledge. So if you're able to tap into that, nothing can stop you. So it's absolutely beautiful. So that's our interview. And then we've got a couple other stories just to motivate and inspire you. And so the first one, I love this story. So women in Malawi, they are taking on this idea of limiting beliefs firsthand, okay? So here's what's going on. Women in Malawi are not supposed to drive what they a primary way people get around is through what they call motorcycle taxis. They are not allowed to drive these motorcycle taxis, which is a great way for them to earn money, but only males are allowed to do that. And they are doing their best and doing an amazing job to transform this male-dominated motorcycle industry. So get this. This is their very unique way of thinking to kind of go around the rules, which I really applaud them for. So instead of trying to drive these motorcycle taxis, what they did is the women got together, they combined their resources, and they bought these taxi businesses. So it's kind of like, why would I drive a taxi when I could buy the business? And then they lease the motorcycles to male drivers, and then the male drivers do all the grunt work, which sounds like a good idea to me, right? And get this, the owners, which would be them, they take 65% of the daily earnings. So, wow. I mean, who really missed out on this one? It's like the women looked at this situation and went, I think there's a better way to do this. We're not going to buy into these limiting beliefs anymore. We're going to go around and, they followed the rules and they found a way around it. And now they're making 65% of the daily earnings. Kudos to them. I love it. And then the next story is about power of life stories. So there's a company called Memory Well, and they have this initiative. And what they do is they are helping caregivers better understand and interact with patients. So this isn't a story just to promote Memory Well. We're just using them as an example. But what this company does, they really thought about how caretakers interact with their patients. So what the company did is they thought, well, there's not, you know how like in the medical system, sometimes you can become a number. Like I won't mention the name of the medical provider that my family and I have, but let's just say we have these cards. And whenever I go to some sort of appointment, which I try to avoid them at all costs, but if I have to go or I have to take my kids, they don't even ask me my name. They ask me for my number. So this whole story is about taking that out of the equation. So people aren't numbers anymore, because what people really want is to be understood and heard. So what the company does is they do these short interviews with patients and their family members, and then they compile this information to what they call the patient's life story. And that's information that they give to the caregivers, because the caregivers, once they have that, they understand the person more. Sometimes it's just little things that you pick up on that make people really realize that, hey, this person might really care about me. This isn't just a job to them. A lot of times they're coming into their house and, it can feel a little invasive, I'm sure. And so this is one way that they're transforming this industry. And what they're finding is it's resulting in more empathy and informed caregiving. The staff, who are the caregivers, right? The staff reported improved work quality overall. And then patients and families are saying that they are more satisfied with the care because, they're all working together. And when you work together, you understand each other. You have, like we said, it's more empathy. It's like, oh, I get this person more. Maybe I didn't fully understand their situation before. I didn't understand this, or I didn't understand this had happened to them in the past. Once you have more of that knowledge, you usually react differently in different situations, right? It's really providing what I would call a more human level of care. In our regional news, we have a few stories for you today. And these are stories that you may have seen out there, on various news sites, but we do try to break them down a little bit more and kind of read between the lines and tell you what's really happening, right? So the first story is about a protest, and I believe it's wrapped up now, but it was in Bangladesh, and it was regarding garments, right? So like the clothing side of stuff. And again, we're talking about it again. They were protesting for what? Higher wages, better working conditions. We're seeing a repeat, right? Now, here's something you may not know is that Bangladesh is the global leader in garment production. They actually employ 4 million people. They have 3,500 factories. And to give you an idea of how bad this is, so the workers were earning $75 per month, okay? And then on top of that, they often needed to work extra hours just to be able to afford the basic necessities. And which is ridiculous, right? I'm not sure how much things, cost in Bangladesh, but everything is going up. Prices are going up around the world. And so they started protesting, and then the protests got even more intense when these manufacturers and exporters, they actually came to the table and they suggested a 25% wage increase, which if you did the math is pretty pathetic because what the workers were asking for, again, they were earning $75 per month, but they wanted that increased to $208 per month, which still seems pretty low to me, but it's a dramatic jump, right, from 75 to 208. It's certainly a lot more than a 25% increase. So the protests got even more intense, and I believe some people were injured, including security or police as well. So we certainly don't like that happening, but it's understandable why people are getting so frustrated, right? And they don't know what else to do. Protesting, it's definitely getting the word out. And I think it's helping with other people to see, hey, I'm not crazy here. Other people are having a really difficult time with this. So I do think that it helps with camaraderie, right? And gaining support that way. Is it going to change the bottom line? No. This is such a big problem overall. And these are some of the things that we talk about in the World Situation Report when we talk about finances and the financial system. This whole system has to be changed. Is a protest going to change it? No, it's not. But what it is going to do is show other people that we're fed up. We're just tired of it. And we need better results. So our second story is about Uber and Lyft. Have you guys ever taken an Uber or a Lyft? I know I have. And I actually just watched this documentary. Well, I hesitate to say it was a documentary because anything that is a quote unquote documentary that's coming out on Netflix has, their own agenda in it. But I was just watching a show. Let's just say it was a show about how Uber got started. And this story, back to the news, this story is about how both Uber and Lyft have to pay $328 million to settle a wage theft lawsuit. So the issue is this. They apparently are being accused of withholding money from drivers. You don't say. Large companies, messing with their employees, not giving their employees fair wages. Again, there's, a common denominator here, right, through all of these stories. This settlement, so this $328 million settlement, is apparently the largest of its kind. And what it's going to do is it's going to give money as back pay to drivers. And it includes mandatory sick leave and some other benefits as well. It introduces the concept of an earnings floor. And this mainly impacts drivers outside of New York City. Those drivers are going to earn at least $26 per hour. Now, if you are inside New York City, you're already protected by minimum wage laws, but they're creating this earnings floor for people outside of New York City. Drivers are also given guaranteed paid sick leave. Apparently this wasn't the case before, but they now earn 1 hour of sick pay for every 30 hours worked, and they do cap it as well. So it's good to see that this kind of poor behavior, which I don't think was on accident from these large companies, right? Because they pretty much just care about their shareholders and don't really care about the drivers. Although that quote unquote documentary / show that I was watching made it seem like, they totally care about the drivers. Yeah, I don't believe that for a second. Okay. It's usually about the bottom line for the shareholders and the corporate people at the top. And speaking of, large companies doing bad things and the hits keep coming, guys. Our final story is about Amazon and an antitrust lawsuit that is going on right now. And this was actually filed by the Federal Trade Commission. So, according to redacted documents that are part of this whole lawsuit, the FTC says that Amazon has a secret tool, which actually has a name. Don't you love it when the elites come up with these crazy names for their horrible operations and things like that? I'm noticing the same thing with these large corporations. So their secret tool is called Project Nessie. And it was used to manipulate prices and boost their profits. Now, it doesn't go into detail, which you probably don't want that information out there. It's probably proprietary and whatever anyway. So we don't know exactly how it was doing this, but we do know that the tool generated more than $1 billion in revenue for the company. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? There are people that can't even afford to put food on the table. And these people are earning billions of dollars from manipulating prices. I mean, it's horrible, right? And this led to higher prices for consumers, as well as reduced marketplace competition. And Amazon was also accused of pressuring sellers to use their fulfillment service, which is called Fulfillment by Amazon. And that limited consumer choices. So I have to tell you real quickly a story. So my husband and I, this was many years ago, we loved the baby blankets that our kids came home in from the hospital. They're just really quality, really big blanket. I mean, I say blanket. It's kind of like a burp cloth / blanket, right? They're kind of thin. we love these. And we're like, why can't you buy these in the store? So for a brief moment in time, my husband and I we were selling these baby blankets on Amazon. And we were trying to decide how to handle fulfillment because we have become, and when I say we, I'm talking about us as a society, right? We are like, oh, we have to have it super quick. If it doesn't come in a couple days or less than that, or by drone or whatever the heck Amazon is doing now, we feel like it takes forever, right? So there is this pressure that Amazon has created to do their fulfillment by Amazon. And I will tell you, and maybe actually this is part of the Project Nessie as well. Our experience was we started making money in the beginning. And then once we started making some money from this, and we were doing everything by hand. So we were getting the blankets from the original manufacturer. We were folding the blankets, putting them in bags and putting labels on them, doing all that. And then we would ship it off to Amazon for their fulfillment. And what we found is shortly after we started making some money with this, another unknown large company that doesn't even make their own goods, they swooped in and dramatically undercut us. Dramatically. So that everything dried up. We had boxes and boxes of all of these baby blankets that were just sitting in these Amazon fulfillment centers. And we lost all of that. We lost all the money we made and even more because some company, whatever, came in and only made 10 cents on a blanket where we were making $1 or more on a blanket. And I don't know, maybe that was part of Project Nessie. It says to manipulate prices and boost profits. So heck, I mean, it could have been that. But we also felt like we had to do this fulfillment by Amazon because if not, you click that little Prime box, we were going to miss out on all that traffic as well. So I have personally seen this happen. And I have seen and experienced firsthand small businesses or, teams, that go in and do this kind of stuff, really get hurt by it. So I'm kind of glad that someone got caught with their hand in the cookie jar on this one. Of course, Amazon has said that these claims are baseless and irresponsible and use some other fancy words to deny any responsibility. In today's World Situation Report with Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. So Kim starts off by talking about a story that was in our regional news that I didn't tell you guys about yet because I knew I was going to save it for the World Situation Report. In the U.S., we have for the last 48 hours been experiencing some issues with major banks not wanting to give you money when you make a deposit. Right? And this is particularly important because people are cashing checks usually at the end of the week, right? They need their paycheck. They're trying to get cash out. And there's a lot of issues right now with it. So we brought it up in the regional stories. And then when we did our World Situation Report, Kim elaborated on this and kind of gave us the story behind the story. So here's what's going on.
A long time ago, during the Trump administration, they had installed closed loops that were just simply called Q. Yes, they did. And this was in the Omega system at the time. And there's still some remnants of that, but it doesn't actually synchronize into the banking system. So here was the plan. They are going to hold up your deposits. They are going to take them out of the banking system. This is what they forget, utilizing a synchronizing terrestrial integrated chromiomorphic, kernel, also called a stick.
A stick. Okay.
Yes. So it's, in technical terms, I'll repeat it one more time. It's a synchronizing terrestrial, because remember, we're talking about quantum AI here, integrated chromiomorphic kernel.
Wow.
Which they had intended to attach to this closed loop, which existed in some remnant form in, I guess you would say, in Omega, for lack of a better term. Now, had they done this and taken all your deposits, they started doing it about 48 hours ago. testing it at least. And had they done this, they would have figured out you can't put it back in because it's still taking it out of the banking system. But then again, I am not crediting these people. Some of them just can't get away from the fact that everything has changed. They just can't do it. They also still tried to install Trump bucks yesterday for the 1,764th time. So, yeah, but this glitch should be fixed within the next, by the time the end of this broadcast anyway, because it's already started. Okay. And they don't have any more kernels, and they don't have any more fake Q things on the other side. And all of their random access memory and a bunch of other things are going away as well. So it's just, like I said, it's a shadow. It's not really connected to anything. It exists in other densities and other dimensions that are not in our reality that we live in now. So it doesn't stop them from trying, because they use these machines, they try to find things, and then they're like, oh God, we found it. Oh, thank God for the Q line, Oh, God. That exists in the depths of hell. Let's save the world, guys, with the Q line from the depths of hell. If you'd like to have a demonic cursed line with whatever the heck that is and running your banking system, then you can probably sign up on some Q Telegram chat somewhere.
I was just going to say, is there a connection between that and Q as we know it, the white hat Q?
Yep.
Yeah, it's connected.
That's actually, yes. Yeah, saving the world one demon at a time. Yeah. Saving whose world, I'm not sure.
Yeah, exactly. So there you are. That's what the white hats are up to. They're not saving babies and fixing our financial system. They are trying to pull stuff out of the former Omega system, which obviously is not working, and, cause all sorts of problems with you trying to get money out from your hard-earned money that you are making when you work your butts off at your jobs, right? That's what that white hats are actually doing. Okay, the next soundbite that I want to play is Kim talking about the operatives. So if you recall, last week, we said the operatives, more and more operatives were interested in working for CARE/the Global Intelligence Agency, the GIA, to help restore our planet, which could be a good thing. These are highly trained individuals. These are the people that actually carry out the plans from these elites, okay? Which the elites never created the plans. The plans were, came from much higher than the elites. So they were just, people that were part of this massive pyramid structure. But still, the operatives would carry out these plans. So getting those people on your side could be crucial in advancing the restoration plan. But we need to make sure that these people are serious. And right now we have some holdouts. But as Kim told us on today's World Situation Report, we are now down to less than 1% of operatives that are still holding out, thinking that the Rothschilds and all these people are actually in control and are going to give them money. That is never going to happen. The only way they're going to get money is if they join the restoration team and they start working with the GIA and CARE to help restore the planet. So here is Kim talking about the operatives, because they basically made this decision where one goes, they all go.
So I mentioned to you on Wednesday that Langley 5 would like to, or Langley, supposedly wants to come forward and be good friends. Mm-hmm. Remember, they want to work together, want to have a meeting. That's absolutely not the case. Now, the reason why they said this, and I suspected this from the get-go, I did not leave the light on. I did not, put my best suit on today. I wasn't expecting anything. I got to be honest with you. So I said, call me when you show up. That's what I said. When you're here in Durango, then call me and I'll come down the street and we'll have a talk, right? Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I would hate to be an operative. I just would tell you that much, because you're really stuck between a rock and a hard place. And then, of course, you can't really trust those around you either. So they've kind of developed this where if one's going to go, we're all going to go kind of mentality. So they were told Remember I said that they asked me to give them 24 hours and we were going to see their work. Well, all the great things they're going to do. Just give us 24 hours and all of this stuff. Well, the story behind 24 hours has to do with stolen artifacts.
Okay.
So there were these two artifacts. They're very small. They look almost like a fatter version of a coin, but a large coin. They're not very big. Now, they had stolen them many, many years ago from our side. And there are more than 7 in the world. I'll just leave it at that. I know that for a fact. And they thought on this particular day, based on the last line of instructions they ever got from, let's just say, the underworld, that today was, or last night, I should say, anytime after midnight, would be a good time to then take these coins, which they thought opened gates. That was their impression. Again, we're in the car trying to wait for our dishes to be cleaned in the back seat. Okay, so they were under the impression that these open gateways, and there was some kind of something that was supposed to occur last night, according to their old instruction set. And so they went to the Rothschilds, actually, because they believed themselves to be the line of Solomon, the Khazarians. And some other family members from Saudi Arabia went to the gate in Israel with these 2 coins and made an attempt to open the gate there. Now, they got very frustrated when it didn't work. Of course they did. So they wanted to see what was inside the coins that made this happen. So they broke the coins open. This was probably about 2 o'clock in the morning, my time. Thank you very much. No one ever does anything in daylight hours. You know that? My alarms start going off. I'm like, what the heck are you people doing now? And, you got to wake me up at 2. I mean, that's fine. I'm used to like 0 sleep, so that's fine. So they got very frustrated, so they broke open these 2, for lack of a better term, I'm calling them coins. They're probably the thickness of an average pancake, maybe a few millimeters thick. They're probably about the size of maybe a little smaller than your average cheeseburger or something like that, kind of in round. So they're a little larger than a coin. And they broke them open, and what they saw was a type of a computer chip, and they saw some crystal dust, for lack of sand, I would say, because there were some pieces that were larger, some pieces that were smaller, but it was filled with a bunch of crystals. So they got very angry, and they took these then broken coins, I guess for lack of a better term, they only had 2, and they tried to read the chip that was inside. So they took it to, let's just say, special Israeli people that specialize in cyber things, and managed to read a part of what was in there. So you could say that this was almost like a flash drive, for lack of a better term. It had some information on it. But they read a little bit about on the preface. Like, let's just say, a book has a preface. It gives you kind of like a little bit of a summary of, the plot to the story and whatnot. So they basically had realized, number one, that these were something that could have been utilized during the beginning of the Light Age. Now that we have transitioned into the Light Age, you no longer matter. No, they got really angry. They were actually tied to something else, which they did not possess, which was supposed to go to the same place on the border of Iran and Iraq, between the where the living water is. You remember the gates opening and all of that, and that special place in the mound of gold, and there was another artifact that they're missing, that they do not have. I know they do not have it because I know where it is and I know where I left it, and that's not where I left it. I actually physically carried this object to a location, and it is now hidden there for a long time because it's not a toy. And then there are a few other coins that were to go along with it, which would go to different continents, which would then activate let's just say something. But it cannot be used for the reverse. You cannot reverse it out. So the rest of everything was written in one of the oldest languages in the universe, and I've seen some of those agreements between source and all of this, but it can be translated by a person with the right frequency. So I have also seen this same language in the books of natural law and a few other things, and it's very easy to decipher and to read if you know how to do it, and you are on the light side and you work with light matter and you work with a lot of different other things, you can read it. So if you're listening and you're with the Rothschild family and you need somebody to translate this for you, come on down to Durango. I'd be happy to do that and take care of that for you, no problem. But you're not going to like the answer.
What did it say?
Well, it's all about the restoration of nature, all things natural, the natural order of things. It's like the recipe on how to fix things based on its attachment to Earth's Akashic records and the original DNA blueprints and those types of things. So it's basically a recipe for restoration, for lack of a better term. And then it would have programmed that into the DNA of Earth. And the DNA of Earth would have changed quicker.
So everything we talked about last week with the operatives, and we thought maybe they just need some time to sort stuff out. This is what they were up to. And maybe it was that last 1% that was doing it. But really, like, the group needs to come together and pick a side. And so that's where we're at right now. And so we will see. We will see what happens over the weekend and going into Monday. Hopefully, Kim will have some good news for us as to what side they chose. Let's hope the operatives choose wisely, because if you're not for the restoration, then you're against the restoration. And that's a big problem, especially if you're still taking orders from the people that are trying to harm humanity, cause wars, cause diseases to be spread on this planet, cause famine. That's a no-no. It's simply not going to be tolerated anymore. So let's see what happens. Okay. All right. Well, for you guys, please do some research on the stuff that we talked about today. Again, don't take my word for it. Do some research on your own. You can still search for some of these topics online and at least start thinking outside of these narratives that are just being spread through mainstream and alternative media. And if you like what we talked about today, if it made sense to you or starting to make sense to you and you want to share it with other people, I would encourage you to do that. Please do that. And if it felt a little like, whoa, what are they talking about today? Just stick with us. Just keep listening. And I promise it will make more and more sense. If you want more information about United Network, which, is where all of our episodes are at, all of our newscasts. You also get complete world situation reports, original series, health and wellness videos. All of that falls under a membership. But if you want more information, you can go to unitednetwork.tv. And then if you just want to connect with us, we encourage you to do that. We've got a bunch of different Telegram channels and other sites and stuff like that. So I'm going to put a link in the description, but it's at unitednetwork.news/connect. And if you click on that link, it'll have a bunch of other links for us. So you can pick whichever resource you want to check out. All right. Thanks for joining us today, guys. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Gold for United Network News, signing off.